we have nearly 50 people joining us, and they will keep joining us as we go. But I would like to kickstart this session by saying hello and welcome to you all from across Canada for our first community conversation for seniors and by seniors. We have representation from across the country, from British Columbia, Yukon, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, from sea to sea. Welcome, everyone. My name is Christine Bidmead, and my role today is to facilitate this conversation about aging at home and the modifications you might be thinking about. I will then try and bring all together all the comments and the questions from our discussions. A little bit about me. I'm a senior myself, and I find that there are issues that my husband and I are thinking about to make sure that we can be the best that we can be as we get older. And that's why I'm really pleased to be part of this project. I trained as a physiotherapist a very, very long time ago, and ended my career as a hospital director overseeing rehabilitation and geriatric services. I retired in 2011, but have been involved in the past several years with the Regional Geriatric Programme of Eastern Ontario as a project lead for the regional fall prevention strategy for that region in Eastern Ontario. And it has been the perfect post-retirement job. I'm happy to be part of this project too, as a facilitator for these sessions for seniors by seniors. And my co-facilitator, Marguerite Thomas, is also a senior. And for the past 14 years, she's been the consultant liaison for the Fall Prevention Community of Practice, which is now sponsored by Parachute, and the National Injury Prevention Charity. Marguerite is also a caregiver for her late husband and her mother, and she has worked in injury prevention since 1996. The idea of today is to listen and learn so we can share and understand what we seniors are concerned, challenged, or confident about when we're thinking about aging at home. And today we're focusing on the issue of making any modification needed to the home to make that possible. To do this, we'll be breaking into smaller groups, with each group having the same questions to discuss for about 20 minutes. This will be seamless. You won't have to do anything except stay connected, and when prompted, click a got it button on your screen. Each group will have a helper who will report back the key messages of your discussion to the main group. We'll have a bit of a break after that, and so we can then move into a review of what you all had to say. However, before we start, there's some housekeeping issues to keep in mind, and I need my list so that I don't forget them. At the moment, everyone is currently muted. If you have questions or comments, please use the chat box. We'll monitor this space for questions and comments. And if you're not sure how to use the chat box, Annie from Cyber Seniors will be doing a quick demonstration of that in a minute. You can turn your camera off and on if you like. If you aren't sure how, that also will be part of Annie's demo in a moment. Remember to turn your camera off if you have to go for a break. That's important. We've all heard stories about people who don't do that. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on Parachute's YouTube channel for other seniors who are not able to attend. However, the breakout rooms will not be recorded. And afterwards, you'll receive a follow-up package via email with a summary of the discussion, some links to some helpful resources, and the recording of the meeting. So Annie from Cyber Seniors is now going to give us a tech session to explain how to turn the camera on, how to use the chat box, and later she'll come back and tell us how to answer poll questions, which will be running during the session. So it's my pleasure to introduce Annie from Cyber Seniors. Thanks, Annie.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you everybody for having me here today. So in order for us to conduct these interactions as easy as possible for everybody, I'm going to a few things so you have in mind. So my name is Annie. Once again, I work with Cyber Seniors. We are a non-profit organization that does tech training for older adults. So with that in mind, just allow me to share my screen and I can show the features that you need to have in mind today. So 1 minute here. Alrighty, so here is my screen and I'm using a large device. So I'm using a computer, a desktop. And the first thing we want to go over is the video, right? So if you refer the view to the bottom left corner of your screen, you will have this button. It looks like a record camera. We call that a record camera. And if your video is on, as opposed to say start video, you will say stop video. And if you at any point want to turn it off, you will just click over. You see, instead of seeing yourself in the screen, you will see an initial of your letter or the name of your letter or your initials, sorry. And you will then have to click back if you ever want to start it again. So when it's on, it will say stop video. When it's off, it will say start video. And you will know the difference between the two because the strike through will be on it. All right, so that is the video option, and this is only if you want to turn on the video during the session. You also have, and if you move your view or your vision a little bit more towards the right side, you have this chat option displayed here. And if you click over that, not only you will be able to see what is being commented in the meeting, but also if you want to introduce yourself and do any kind of feedback while the meeting is happening, you can refer to the bottom of the screen and there will be this indication that says type message here. You then will proceed typing whatever it is that you want to communicate. If you are using a computer, instead of seeing a send button on the right side, you will have to use the enter key in the keyboard. Then you will click in that enter key and that message will be sent. So that's how you can send a message and it will be visible for everyone soon as you see that word right here in this bar. Now, I'm going to present a smaller device as opposed to a large device. So if you are using a smartphone, tablet, or any other device as opposed to a computer, how the options look on those. So give me a minute here and I will go over that real quick. All right. All right. 1 minute here. 1 second. Let me enable this on my end so I can show you that functionality. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. All right, everybody. Here it should be. For some reason, it's not letting me share it, Michelle. Or
that's okay, Annie. I think what you've shown.
Okay.
Oh, we are seeing it now, but I think what you've shown for the desktop is sufficient.
Okay. Well, in the case that you are using a small device, instead of seeing the chat display all the way in a line option, you will see it in the more menu, which is located at the bottom right of your screen, and you will just have to tap in that more option, and there will be this chat button. You will have to tap in chat, and this is how it will look like if you are in a smartphone as opposed to a computer. So it will take over your entire screen. You won't be able to see anything else. And the process to send a chat is exactly the same. You will just tap in this part at the bottom in this chat box. Tap here, the keyboard will be then displayed in front of you. You will type your message. And instead of using the enter key in your keyboard, you will use this arrow pointing to the right, and that's it. So your message will be sent. Right. So I think that is everything on my part at this time. So thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Thank you, Annie. And hopefully everybody is now able to switch themselves on or off from the video as they wish. As I said, if you need to leave for any reason, make sure you turn your video off. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Nancy Edwards, our home modification expert, and she's going to give a quick overview of the focus of today's conversation. She's also going to help us with some questions that come up later on. Nancy is a Professor Emeritus in the School of Nursing at the University of Ottawa, and she chairs the CARP Fall Prevention Working Group. A great deal of her research over the years has been related to home safety, and we're really very pleased to have her here today. Nancy, thank you.
Thanks very much, Christine, and welcome to everybody. So I'm going to give you a really quick overview of some background really related to particularly the prevention of falls and the kinds of home modifications we might want to think about to prevent falls. But you all bring your own really important perspectives on the issue of aging in place. And so I really look forward to hearing what you have to say. Michelle's going to advance slides for me, so I'll let her go to the next one. So as I said, the perspective I'm bringing really is around fall prevention, and that's because we know that 1 in 3 seniors fall every year. We know that the incidence of falls increases with age, but actually falls are a major concern for injuries across all age groups. Many people ask me, where do falls happen? It's about 50% of them that occur indoors, the others outdoors. And about 1/3 of all falls involve an environmental risk factor. There's other risk factors too, like psychotropic medications and so on, but it's often a set of factors that lead to a fall. We know that overall about 1/4 of all falls result in injuries, but I'm going to concentrate on home modifications related to falls on stairs and in bathrooms, because for falls that occur in those locations, the injury rate is much higher, 65 to 75%. Next. This is just from a study that I was involved in where we actually asked seniors to self-report what it was that caused their fall on stairs and what made stairs difficult to use. And that was both indoor stairs, which is the orange bar, and outdoor stairs, which is the gray bar. So the blue bar represents what people thought was the cause of falls. And what you see on the left there is that the majority of seniors thought that it was something about them, something about their health behavior or their health status that led to the fall. They talk about being careless, having been lightheaded, not holding onto a handrail, having left something on the stairs, that sort of thing. And similarly, when we asked them what made stairs difficult to use, they often blamed it on themselves. So they overlooked or didn't understand or didn't appreciate the environmental factors that are important. Next. We know that almost 60% of seniors who are 55 and older actually have difficulty climbing stairs. It's a large proportion. That percentage gets bigger as we get older. And stairs are a leading reason for people to either move to another place or restrict their use to a single floor in the home. But over 89% of seniors want to age in place in Canada. So it's really important that we think about the kinds of home modifications that might help us do so. Next. You'll all recognize this woman. She was in the news for sad reasons. Ivanka Trump fell on stairs. We don't know all the details, but that's her staircase there. And I can point out very quickly some things that are problematic about it. First of all, there's a mule post right here. And that means that actually as she's coming down the stairs, she has to take her hand off the handrail, put it back on a handrail, just as she's going down the next step. I see patterns on the carpet, might make it difficult for her to see. I see that the stairs are winding, and actually the handrail is where the narrowest point of the stair is. So that is also a fall hazard. And these handrails may be beautiful to look at as well as the guards, but they are not good to hold on to, and you can't get a good grasp. Next. Here's our reality in many of our homes. And often people have particularly treacherous stairs going down to the basement or up to an attic, but even stairs on the main floor can be a problem. So here you see a handrail that's obstructed. It's just installed too close to the wall, and it's not graspable either by shape or because of its proximity to the wall. Here's a mule post that's upside down that completely blocks the grasp of the handrail at this point. Sort of look at these stairs and you take a deep breath because it looks like they're pretty steep. And that makes them more difficult to navigate. Next. I can't walk around my neighborhood, or any neighborhood for that matter, without critiquing all the stairs that I see. So I have many, many pictures of stairs. Fortunately, I'm not showing you all of them, but this set of stairs on the right, you'll see that they look very steep. A short tread where you put your foot is too narrow. A handrail that is almost impossible to grasp. No landing up here, so you're on the stairs as soon as you open that door. And here, these stairs may be a little bit easier to use. They don't look quite as steep, but they're not uniform. This stair up here is actually shorter than the other ones, and non-uniformity is a big problem. And because of the way these handrails are made, actually, as soon as you get to the second to last step, you have to let go because of the newel post, which means you don't actually have a handrail to grasp onto for the last two stairs in the staircase. Next. These are good handrails. This is a graspable design. This is on the outside of somebody's garage. It's got continuity as you go down the stairs. Similarly here, and there's tactile cues so that you actually see the handrail and feel it, and it cues you as to when the ascent or descent on the stairs happens, and takes you beyond the bottom of the last stair to help you move on. Next. I won't go into details here, but just to let you know that there are very clear evidence-based instructions about what makes for a graspable handrail. In summary, it's like the tennis racket grip, because you want to be able to really grip onto that handrail firmly if you start to fall, and you want it to hold you as you are going up and down stairs. But if you're getting home modifications done, whoever you hire needs to know what a graspable handrail is, and there are lots of resources available. Next. So just in summary, here are some common stair design faults: non-uniform steps, tall risers, narrow steps, open risers where you can see through the stairs because that actually affects lighting and makes it hard to see. Maybe variable lighting, or it's insufficient, especially on basement stairs. Handrail shapes don't allow that power grip, and handrail heights are either too high or too low. Next. So this is my segue into grab bars. This is not how to use grab bars. These are on stairs. That's neither works for the stairs or anything else. So don't do it, but it's my segue. Next. I think most of us enjoy having a bath and a shower. You know, it's part of our quality of life, something we often take for granted. But we have to be able to get into and out of baths and showers safely. Next. So when we get into a bathtub or even a shower, because a shower usually has a lip that you have to step over, which is higher than how much we raise our feet in normal walking. And it involves two main ergonomic functions. One is that we have to step in and out of the bathtub. And secondly, if we're having a bath, we sit down and stand up from the bottom of the tub, or perhaps we're using a bath bench. So there's one grab bar on each of these tubs. It's actually the combination that we need. This is the kind of grab bar that helps you get in and out of a tub or shower. This is the one that helps you stand up and sit down. And we know that a diagonal grab bar is what's needed, and it should actually be a bit longer than that. Next. We see a lot of advertising for manufactured tubs. They're pretty appealing. They can put them in pretty quickly, but the vast majority of them have no grab bar fixtures at all, as you can see in these pictures. And they also have the problem of the fact that you will often void the warranty if you were to drill through that acrylic and install grab bars. Now you might be able to put a vertical grab bar here on the studs in the wall, but as soon as you're drilling into the acrylic, you're going to create leakage, and that's a problem. So that's something homeowners need to think about if they're getting their bathroom redone. Next. Here's a grab bar. You're probably saying, I can barely see that. Well, yes, you can barely see that. It isn't an acrylic tub. It's not diagonal. It's too low to really help you get up and down from the tub. It's transparent, so that if you're having, well, even with good vision, it's hard to see. With bad vision, you're never going to be able to grab it. So it's ergonomically hopeless. I would not categorize that as a grab bar, but in the advertising, that's what it's called. Next. Here's an example of getting it right. This is a friend of mine who purchased and got these grab bars installed for $240. There's some other aesthetically pleasing grab bars that you can buy on the market, but she's got the diagonal bar. She's quite tall. She's got a vertical bar. So she's got both. They're in the right position for her because she had them installed by an occupational therapist or was guided by an occupational therapist. Next. Back one, yes. And here's another friend of mine with balance problems, and she's got a bath seat. This is a major do-over of her bathroom, but she's got grab bars everywhere. Vertical bar. This is a bar that comes out that she can hold on to in her tub, and another one. And this too is a grab bar. Next. And again, just like for handrails, there are really good directives on how to install grab bars properly, where you need them, what size they need to be, what shape, etc. So I won't go into it, but a renovator needs to know that stuff. Next. And if you're thinking, well, I'm not sure I'm ready yet for making home modifications, I'm not old enough or whatever you're thinking about, I would just say, if it's not for you, then consider making home modifications for the safety of young children in your lives. That's my grandson. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. That was a really good review of the focus for today. Marguerite, my co-facilitation colleague, is going to tell her story about the home modifications in her own home. Thanks, Marguerite.
And thank you, Christine, and welcome, everybody. We're really happy to see you here today. I am a senior, as Christine has said, and I am bringing you a cautionary tale and also some good news. I'm still working because I love what I do. It's part-time. I do it mostly from home. It involves writing, organizing, and schmoozing, a lot of my favorite activities. My home is a one-story house on the Maitland River in southwestern Ontario. Like many seniors, where am I here? Like many seniors, I enjoy hobbies, grandkids, and being independent. I was widowed just over 2 years ago, and I may or may not sell my home in the near future. And that's something I know a lot of widowed people have to deal with. Struggling with should I go or should I stay also includes what I might want to modify structurally in my house and what I might just keep or let go. My late husband built our home in 1989, all on one level, which is great. As he grew older, he installed ramps. And go ahead, Michelle, with the ramp pictures, please. So I have ramps on both sides of the house. He thought that the day would come when he would need them, and he did need them. And I was so grateful to have them, not just for him, but my mother also used them. She needed a wheelchair, and many frail visitors that we had, they were just great. There is another ramp that is outside the patio door. They came in handy as well when I had my total knee replacements, as I needed to use a walker and then a cane, as well as very early on when my daughter used a transport wheelchair for me. Also, like many seniors, I have had health issues. I need help for some tasks, as I have had both total knee replacements as well as corrective eye surgery. And oh, how I wish those knee replacements were as wonderful as the eye surgery was. The latest knee replacement was 10 months ago. I stayed with my daughter in Oshawa in the early days, and she had it set up for me that I did not have to go up and down any stairs. When I came home, it was a similar story, as the only stair that I have indoors is one step going down into the garage. There are steps outside on the patio. This was both a good thing and a bad thing. When I had the first knee done, I did not get the stair practice, as I had no stairs. The only place that I needed to do stairs was up and down in the local post office, which has steep stairs, but they do have a railing and there's also a ramp. Now and then I would be in someone's house where there were stairs, and I would pray for a railing that was of use to me. And as Nancy has pointed out, one that with my small hand I can grasp. The end result was that stairs never became easy. With the second knee, it was a similar story. And I still dread stairs whenever I go someplace where they are a hazard. This past spring, I actually did have a fall on poorly constructed stairs at a friend's home. Now, these are stairs of a dear friend of mine, and I have you can see very evidently. And show the second one, please, Michelle. No, the second, that one, yeah, like there's absolutely nothing to hang on to. And I do have wonderful friends, but they don't have wonderful stairs. This is not the stair that I fell on. The stair I actually fell on, beautiful, beautiful cement. I was carrying something in my hand, and the top step was just too high, and I tripped. Perhaps I should have worked harder at being better on stairs, but my main coping mechanism is to accept any help that is offered, especially gorgeous young men. I'll always take their hand. I go very slowly. I concentrate and use the railing, and if something is just too dangerous, I simply will not do it. Moving on, one of the things that my son did for me prior to the last knee surgery was to erect a pole to make it easier for me to get in and out of bed. This pole was something that my aunt had, so it had to be retrofitted against a stud to be strong and firm. You can see that it is not perfect. The ceiling has tiles, and it would involve cutting into the tile if I were to remove it. I probably should remove it if I decide to sell, but it is one of those maybe stories. So with those knees hard to bend, I thought a raised toilet might be easier for me. I went to the local store. I saw a toilet higher than what I had, and I wanted it, and they said that they had another one. The only difference was the shape of the bowl, and I could get that one. And I said, great. So the toilet came, the plumber came, he installed it. Lo and behold, it was not one bit higher than the one that I had. Now I either had to pay the plumber to take it out and buy another one, or just live with it. Because I have a second and higher toilet, I've decided to let it go for just now. But sometimes it pays to be overcautious as to what is being sold to you, and to really supervise any work being done. I just trusted too much. I also had the grab bar installed at that time. Now the grab bar is where the stud is, and you can see it should be further ahead. That would have involved having the toilet further ahead, which would have been great had it been built that way in the first place. So the good news is that modifications and retrofitting are possible. They're sometimes highly effective. They are not always as pretty as we might like them, but they do work. The other good news is to have it done right at the onset if you can. I was very grateful that my late husband built a one-story home and then put in ramps. Many people are working so that new buildings will have a lot of these features. We're far from there yet. So this is my personal story, and I look forward to hearing your personal stories.
Thank you, Marguerite. Yes, a tale of caution and a tale of success, which is great. So hopefully we've set the stage and got you thinking about getting ready for your small group discussions. Before we are divided into groups, I have some poll questions for you to answer, and Annie's going to quickly show us how to respond to a poll online. Annie.
Yeah, let me ask Michelle to launch those so I can show them right now. All right. All right, everybody. So as we were discussing before, here is how you will see the poll pop-up window. It's very simple. All you need to do is just click over the option. For that, you just click in this empty circle. And as soon as you click in any of the answers, you will then refer to the bottom where it says submit, and that will send that answer to the poll question you receive in front of you. If you are in a small device, as opposed to seeing that little pop-up window in front of you, it probably will take over your screen and you won't be able to see anything else.
Excellent. Thank you, Annie. So we have some poll questions really around falls and falling. And so the first one is, have you had a fall or a near fall in the past 12 months? And you need to answer yes or no. I don't know suggests you might have had a near fall. And a near fall is when you are able to catch yourself before you actually end up on the ground. You may end up leaning against a wall or something. And these should be considered, near fall should be considered a warning sign that something's not quite right, whether it's your environment, whether it's you, if you're dizzy, did you turn too quickly, and should be investigated. So please check on yes or no, or I don't know, and hit submit when you're done. Thank you. Michelle, will we be getting the results all at once, or should we do all the polls first and then get the results?
We'll be doing one poll at a time. I'm not seeing that anyone has responded though on my end. Does the poll show for you, Chris?
No, but I responded and I hit submit.
You know, apologies. I'll end the poll and see if. Yeah, it's on my end. It's still saying that no one participated. But
Claire,
there we go. Yeah, now I've got the poll results, and interestingly, 44% said yes, they had fallen, and 49% no, they hadn't, and 7% weren't sure. And I suspect that 7% may well have had a wobble. So interestingly, about 50-50, right? That is interesting. And you know, fall shakes you up. I'm one of the yes people, and it gives you pause for thought. So the next question is about, have you considered making any changes to your home to reduce your risk of a fall? Yes or no? So changes such as a railing, as we've discussed, for your outside step, grab bars in the bathroom, things like raising your washer and dryer so you don't have to bend down so low, and especially if you get dizzy coming back up, that type of thing. So again, have you thought about making home modifications? And yes, no, or I don't know.
I'll give it another minute or two. Again, on my end, it's still not showing that anyone is, but I trust you all are. I know other people are saying that that they can see the poll results. So we'll give it another minute and then I'll share the results.
Thanks, Michelle. I was so busy talking that I didn't actually click submit. So
the polls are not evident on the screen. I had to go to the chat to find them.
Oh, that's interesting, because mine just popped up on the screen.
That might be the case for small devices. Sorry, I talked over you, Christine.
That's okay.
Mine too. Mine popped up on the screen.
Yeah.
Cool. And I saw a result, but it went.
Yes, me too.
Here we go. So 55% of you, or us rather, have considered making some home modifications, and 38% have not. And maybe will do after today, and 7% are still, I guess, you know, the pre-consideration stage. So thank you. This all helps for when we tie up our discussions at the end and think about, you know, what the issues really are.
Excuse me a minute, but
yeah.
When you said that question for yes or no, I did say no. But it's because I have them all already. So
okay, even better.
The answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even better. Yeah.
Okay.
Even better.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
But it does
Very
do
good
the
point.
answers. Yeah.
Very good point. We didn't think of people like you.
Right.
You're just ahead of the game. Well done. So the last poll is really about, do you think that most falls are preventable? And I think it's a bit of a reminder here that falls are not an inevitable part of aging, which some people think they are. And very often the severity of the injury is what is the most damaging as we get older and has the most impact on our lives. So do you think most falls are preventable? Yes, no, or I don't know. I suspect there are other people who've also made all the modifications too. Oh, well done. I'm pleased to see that. That being my project enthusiasm is around fall prevention. Yes, most falls are preventable. That's really great to see that you all think the same. Excellent. Well, thank you for participating in the polls. I think the results of those polls will help us as we make move into our breakout rooms. And we are at that point where we're about to be broken into breakout rooms, and this will happen automatically. You will have to click the Got It button. You'll also find yourself in a small group with a lead who will help navigate the conversation and bring some key questions for you to discuss and some key messages back to our main group. We're going to take about 20 minutes. We're running a bit behind, but we'll take the time to hear that's the important thing, is to hear what you have to say. Anybody who is joining us by phone will also be put into a group. Before we come back, we're going to try and fit in a quick 5 minutes, a break that you can actually have a stretch, get a glass of water, whatever. If you do leave, make sure you turn off your camera. We've all heard those pandemic stories of people who have got up and, I'm going to say exposed all sorts of things nobody wanted to see, messy rooms or whatever. And so we will break into the breakout rooms, hopefully, Claire, and we will see you soon. I think we do have everybody back, which is great. So I am going to call the leaders of the small groups. I know some people have to go, and we really thank you very much for taking part. This will be recorded and sent out to you with a summary of what we've said. And Paulette raised a good point about what will happen to this information. And I think as we're funded through New Horizons, there will be a report when we've finished these sessions, these community conversations, that will go back to New Horizons, which is a government, and we hope that we can use that information also to inform each level of government around aging at home. So, Ellen, can you kickstart us with some thoughts from your groups, key messages? We're going to keep to the key messages, and if a point has already been raised by a previous group, we'd ask you don't repeat that. Ellen doesn't have to worry about that, and keeping it short and sweet.
Yes. So 3 main points from our group was very stimulating conversation. So we raised the issue of when we asked about home modifications, when you do live in a rental, and I think it was raised in the chat. So when you're renting, and in some cases we had example of people that they were successful in talking to their landlord and getting some modifications, and others weren't so sure, especially in condo settings where there are rules, but also in rentals. But there are places to go. We were informed by one of the participants that you should reach out to your provincial rental board or any provincial body that would be responsible for that should your landlord not be amenable to that discussion. So that was very, and we can follow up on that. We're going to look into it, and we'll send you some information on that. We have some students on hand who will be helping with that too. The other issue that was brought up was not only the home, but public places. So they were, so examples were given of new buildings being built, and hold and behold, they're not amenable to having older adults, seniors who have possibly some mobility issues. Like for instance, there's a theater that was built in BC. where the seats are very uncomfortable and it's difficult to get up from, especially if you had knee replacements or hip issues. So that there should be the perspective of seniors from the get-go when these things do happen. So that was the second point. And finally, it does come back to, so I did mention through the second point, is that the perspective of seniors has to be included. It is often not considered. And yet, you know, there are various perspectives, but there are seniors in all cultures. We're getting older in Canada, and yet there is this tad of ageism still present. And when there are things that are being done, that seniors should be included from the get-go, because the accessibility issues that were raised in the past, the definition of accessibility has changed. And when we talk about seniors, it's a different lens that needs to be applied. That's it for us.
Thank you, Hélène. Good thing to start off with. Some good points there. Marguerite.
I had a group that really had been able to solve a lot of their issues through a variety of things. One is having family that is very handy and helpful in purchasing things, installing things, and that's all really, really good. We had one lady who had a fall on stairs, and her advice to everybody was, this was during COVID, she didn't want to seek treatment. Her advice is, if you have a fall like that, do get treated, because she ended up with longer term issues than she wanted. So we also had a volunteer with the Council of Aging, and certainly the advice is to go to your Council of Aging, whatever you have that might be in your area. They're very helpful. They have a lot of really good information. Our people were lucky, Hélène, that they did have landlords who were really quite good. And we did also talk a bit about aging in place, and that fear of falling, it really is a concern. And so having the home modifications is a good thing to do. One lady is considering having her cellar stairs repaired. And we talked about the fact that the old standards, we were smaller people with smaller feet, and now we're bigger people with bigger feet, and we need good stairs.
Thanks, Marguerite.
That's my group.
Excellent. Liza. I think you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. That 20 minutes really went by quickly. So I want to just first apologize to Sheila, who got cut off as we went back to the main group. So our breakout session had a group of individuals where quite a few were actually involved in some capacity in related to either home modification or falls prevention. And so a couple of recurring themes did come up. And one was, when you're asking the question, what modifications are needed for your house, you know, that might be something not everyone knows or would know to look for. And so there was a recurring theme of having an assessment and being proactive. So whether it be an occupational therapist who comes in to do the assessment, taking a course on falls prevention in your home, but learning about what modifications are available and what would be sort of pertinent to each individual. And then again, being proactive. And so not waiting until there is the case where there is a mobility issue or a fall or an illness where those modifications are needed. And then we did get into the topic of being mindful. And so that is for another session, but being mindful, moving in your home. And again, that would play into then sort of maybe potentially recognizing what modifications might need to be done.
Thank you. Diana.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm putting my camera back on. I just wanted to say what struck me most about our group was the amount of proactiveness that was completely apparent. And I've been meeting with groups of older adults for several years now, and I cannot tell you that I really think I see a difference. And if we want to have control over our lives and stay in our own homes, then doing some of these proactive things, I think, is super important. So I just have to, congratulate my group. Now, couple of really interesting things that came up was Marion, who is in Ottawa, was part of a focus group where they're investigating whether she would want to be part of an app and what she would like to see in an app for her phone, that when she's out in the community, she can take pictures of some of these community issues that we've been talking about, either no handrails or the seats being uncomfortable, etc. So that the designers can actually have concrete examples to go back to the government with, to have bylaws changed or modifications built into building codes, etc. And I think that that was really, really interesting. Something else that came up was that several people had falls. And I think the best comment was, I had a fall that was completely preventable. She was at the grocery store and she was wearing her clunky garden shoes. And you know what? Those garden shoes, they sometimes are a little bit bigger on our feet, and they got caught up in the wheel of the shopping cart and smack onto the cement. So falls are very often preventable, and we just need to think about what we're doing and being aware. That was a big difference. And being willing to make the changes. That really came up, was being willing to do them. And I just, again, was so impressed with the proactiveness. And one of our participants, Lauren, does a falls prevention program, really an exercise program. And she said she has seen a huge difference, that COVID was really brought people wanting to have more control over their own destiny, and that she's seen a change in that. So that was kind of where the differences that we would have seen from the other groups so far.
Thank you, Diane. No, sorry, Diana. I have a friend who's Diane and it rolls off the tongue. Sorry. Nathan.
Hello. So my group had a couple of insights. I'll try and go through the ones that weren't already mentioned here. So first and foremost, there were an inquiry into, or a lot of interest in walk-in bathtubs and the accessibility of not having to step over in order to access bathtubs or shower facilities. There was even one anecdote of someone whose aunt, I believe, had a lower entry bathtub, but because of their personal physical conditions, was not even able to use that and would rely on sink baths and could not even use their shower. So another interesting one was the sort of the excessive cost associated with personal home modification and just a lack of information, one, of resources available to seniors who are interested in home modification, but also a lack of information about who to reach out to even get a quote, or even to ask about, who is the right person for this job. And so there was basically just no confidence in the direction to go. One member of the breakout group had the fortune of being in a community where there was someone who was, a stair guy, for example, and he was able to come in and install railings and safety bars and that sort of thing. But for the average person who's in their own community and it's not a dedicated seniors community, they don't really know where to go. And especially for people who don't necessarily have the most confidence in their technical literacy skills, Google and the internet are just not the most reliable means of reaching out. So I think that if I had to pinpoint one thing, it was information and just comfortability about where to go for the modifications themselves, and also about cost mitigating things like grants or even the tax rebates, which I did mention there will be some information on those available to everyone in the information packet that will be sent out after this event. But that was definitely a sticking point of somewhere that there are definitely room for improvement.
Thank you. Thanks, Nathan. Kelly?
Thank you, Christine. So our group did spend quite a bit of time talking also about the issue of rentals and the additional wrinkle that in many housing markets, the rental properties have become so expensive that even if your solution is to try to find someplace that is better suited, it's very difficult to find something that's affordable. So that certainly was one addition to the concern around modifications within rental properties. A theme that came up at our group was, I would call it a theme of isolation, people who live alone. In fact, we had 2 members of our group who lived alone and in the country. So their worry is, if I fall, what happens? Both of them have a similar solution, is that they sort of make sure that they have their cell phone charged and they take it with them when they go outside or when they are moving around. One of our participants has a family member who checks in morning and night with a phone call. But I still think that there is quite an issue around isolation. We brought up, what about the medical alerts? And everybody kind of laughed and said, well, I'm not prepared for that yet. That's for when I'm older. So the concept of how do we normalize having some kind of personal device. A cell phone is useful, but they can run low on batteries. There are some issues there. So that theme of isolation and how do we then reach out to other people should we suffer a fall. Another thing that some of the tips that people had already done, one person had gone through and removed all their scatter rugs. Someone else, her husband had had surgery, and there was somebody from the hospital came out to look through the whole house to advise on modifications. And one of the things was to get rubber-backed bath mats, as an example. And finally, I think the thing that came out was around who to go to for advice. We had, for instance, one person whose doctor said there's a certain kind of sleeping medication, sleeping aid that you should not use because you may be dizzy when you get up in the middle of the night. So adjusting of medications. Also, who do we go to get this exact advice? Lots of oohs and ahs over those stair rails that started and went down and continued. But where do you get that kind of stuff? Or someone is about to renovate a bathroom. Where exactly should those grab bars go? And who can tell me that? Because they're not confident that the renovator can do it.
Thank you, Kelly. And I think there's some similar themes coming up that Nancy is going to hopefully have some time for her to at least address briefly. Stephanie, last group, I believe.
Save the best for last, right?
Yeah, exactly.
we had a great chat in our group. Also had lots of conversation about the things people already have throughout their homes. So talking about where people already have grab bars and railings. And there was definitely some reflection on some more things that could be done based on the presentation that we heard earlier. It was nice to hear that the information Nancy shared was helpful, thinking about extending grab bars out to the garage along the side, things like that. And also, considering other aspects of your home's design. So things like doorways, the doorway into the bathroom, if you have an injury or because of mobility, you rely on an assistive device, can you get through doorways in your home? Some other structural considerations and just, thinking about the home that you're actually in and what will and will not work in your own space. And echoing others, really, we talked about how beneficial it was or how beneficial it would be to have help from those who are knowledgeable, not just for the assessment piece, like for example, with an OT, but also knowledgeable installers that you can feel confident working through, who can really advise and do a great job with that installation. We talked about how, again, in considering about aging in place in our homes, thinking about the areas of our home that we really need to access. So we had some conversation about if you're living in a multi-level home and are thinking about concentrating on the main level, do you have a full bathroom there? Do you have access to laundry? Just definitely some consideration and planning on how you can have a full life and not need to avoid things or really work around things, that you want your home to be a comfortable, livable, and movable space. There was some talk about being proactive, and that was reflected in our group as well. But I want to add also the thought about being financially proactive and saving for these future considerations, not just about saving for these types of modifications we were talking about, but we had some more conversation about, you know, how many of our friends and relatives are developing Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative conditions and things like that. And it's not nice to think about that and prepare for that, but financial planning to help ourselves, our partners, our loved ones, and friends and support systems be able to help support, you know, should that happen. And just finally want to say, we talked about our wishes for the future, and overwhelmingly our wishes really are for good health, to be able to stay at home. And wanted to mention a theme that came up, that COVID really impacted how we thought about this. So even those that were thinking that they would move out of home at some point, either sooner or later, really rethought that after COVID and have a renewed sense of wanting to age in place, but that there are major needs for the system. The system is not set up to really support us to do that, and that needs to be addressed to support seniors. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you to all our facilitators for that feedback. We don't have as much time as we had hoped, but that's but we have. I think the main thing is that we have heard and we've shared and we've listened, I would like Nancy, if she can, just to, while we've got her, to just, there were a few points. Walk-in bathtubs, I think, was one. Stairs and the doorways, those type of things, and maybe the being able to get resources and finding people who actually know what they're doing.
Yes, we could spend another hour.
Exactly.
The really good points that came up. So I'll just try to highlight a few. And I put my address, my email address in the chat. So I'm happy to be in contact with people if they would like to follow up. I guess the main things I'd like to pick up on are, first of all, accessibility. So many of you mentioned that, and accessibility is key. And we're seeing a movement in Canada towards more accessible buildings, but it's a slow process. And of course, there's the whole retrofit problem, which is what most of you are dealing with home modifications. But there is now Canadian federal legislation on accessibility. It's relatively new. It only covers federal buildings, but it's a start. That's how we started getting environmental tobacco smoke out of our communities as well. I think you need to know that accessibility is under a lot of discussion with the building codes that are being recommended to the provinces. The provinces all create their own legislation around building codes. They all have to do public consultation around that. So there are opportunities to provide input, and municipalities can have bylaws that require a heftier regulation around accessibility than is required by legislation. So working with local councils of aging and so on to push for more accessible environments is important. There's a lot of myths around accessibility, one being that it's only for older people, only for the disabled, when in fact the main message I think we need to get out there is that a more accessible environment is better for everybody of all ages, of all abilities. So it's an improvement that we all benefit from when we make for more accessible environments. With respect to home modifications, yeah, very common issues I've heard many times. So in talking to many builders, I would say that the key things to ask about if you're trying to get a contractor and so on is, do they work with a team that involves an occupational therapist who could come in and assess your particular needs, especially if you have a permanent or short-term problem, disability that needs to be assessed. But that will tell you that they're cued into accessibility issues. There are quite a few funds available for home modifications. We'll get information out about those. Just because somebody is a contractor and they say say that they have built for people who have problems, walking upstairs. Don't assume that they know this field is specialized. There are now courses available that they can take actually to improve their skills. So you might find out whether or not they've had such a course. If you're getting somebody who's a real estate agent, find out what training they've had in looking at accessibility issues so they can help you find the right place to go to. If you're having trouble with your landlord, then you can go to a landlord and tenant association to make your complaint. You can tell them that it's a human right to actually have an accessible home and to make changes that will improve accessibility. And there are lots of people who can advocate for you out there. But I think the bottom line is we all need to be our own advocates. We have to tell our stories. We have to tell our primary care provider if we've had a fall so they can look at our risk factors, but not just that, they need to hear about this so that they too can advocate on our behalf for safer environments and home modifications. And we need to tell our families as well, because they are also our best advocates and they can help with some of the changes as some of you explained. I think I'll stop there given the shortage of time, but I hope that's a bit helpful.
Thank you. Thanks, Nancy. I understand we have a bit of a buffer, so we're not going to get cut off in 30 seconds. I just wanted to say that I found the discussions and the proactiveness of people who have done all of the work that needs to be done, but also I think there are those of us who maybe are afraid of falling, have fallen and are afraid of falling, maybe live in a rental, who and you have a landlord who doesn't really want to put a rail on stairs, and you don't want to move or you can't move. And so what is going to happen? You're going to not go out because you don't want to go down those stairs. And by not going out, you're going to become more isolated, more frail and less active. And that just leads to more falls. And so I think the proactiveness and the advocating for yourself and learning about resources, finding out what you can from any organization, or your local library may well have resources that you can get. Marguerite, do you have some pearls of wisdom, because you've been there and done that?
It's the last word.
Yeah, exactly. And it's yours.
My last words are, you have been just a fabulous, fabulous group to work with. We just are just feeling so strongly how helpful you've been and enthusiastic about what is needed. I'm seeing so much strength and so much willingness to fight for this. And I would like to invite you to the next community conversation, which is October 19th. You will be getting follow-up materials. And when you get your information, please invite other people that you know. I'm sure you'll see that there's friends and relatives that you think, boy, they would benefit from belonging to a community conversation like this. So thank you for joining us. If you have a second to just go back and look in the chat, there is a blurb there about the Council of Aging in Ottawa, which has a lot of really good information. And there are other places you'll have good information too. That seems to be so key, information and help. And just thank you for being who you are.
Absolutely, Marguerite. And as we wind up, I think be safe, keeping your home safe, but also thinking that if you can't make your home what you need, to think about the community you live in, and the other parts that make your home is where your heart is, right? And thinking about those things as you mull your future over. So please look from an email from Michelle, which will have a summary. And I would just like to say a huge thank you to Nancy Edwards for your expertise, and your presentation was brilliant. And to Marguerite, to Michelle, to Hélène, Liza, Diana, Claire, Annie, Kelly, Nathan, and Stephanie for all the work behind the scenes. Really appreciated it. Thanks a lot. And to everybody who took part, I think we got some really good information of what seniors really think about aging at home and how we make that home possible to age in. So thank you.